Hey everyone. I I was just listening to a call with Kyle, my friend Kyle, and he was talking about he was doing his like Wednesday night call thing, and he was talking about like the thrust of it was any pattern that's coming up, we can actually be present for. Anything that's happening is actually not a problem. And there's a way in which, if you really kind of if you think this through, which, Kyle was doing a beautiful job of kind of tracing the steps that our mind makes, there's a way in which any pattern that's here was programmed at a point in our life when we were vulnerable and we were in a place of real fragility. Whether that fragility was actually the danger of physical harm coming to us, which sometimes it maybe was, but whether or not it was, that's what we felt might happen. That's what our physiology, that's what our emotional world thought might happen, is that we might be in danger. And so the notion that we would want to get rid of a pattern, want to get it out, right? Like move beyond it, overcome the pattern. It's so huge. Like recognizing that is, whenever that happens, what's really happening is the ego's trying to transcend the ego, which is completely impossible. It's what happens when you do a little bit of inner work and you think, okay, now I get it. Now I'm the person who knows how to overcome his patterns or her patterns. And you fall into another pattern. And now the ego just speaks like how God spoke yesterday. And I think it's settling in with me in a deep way, because there's a lot of stuff kind of coming up for me right now. The end of this course is launching me into, I've just been gushing about it for days, and it's been such a beautiful experience. And it's also, now I'm kind of in a new phase of unknownness. It's not even, the funny thing is, it's still ongoing. The course is not over for me. There's just a big portion of it that has passed, and that in terms of what I'm building, I'm moving on to the next step in a way. But I also had a student who's in the middle of the course right now, and I had her on I had a lesson with her today, and she was in a beautiful place. She's having so much come through, and she, funny enough, like as Kyle was talking, I was thinking of this lesson because it was really what we talked about was also very relevant to it. She was talking about how, she runs these workshops, and she's way into the whole kind of like inspirational self-help, working on your inner shit world. She's very up on that, and she runs her own workshops, and she's saying it just gets really tiring to hear people say we need to love ourselves over and over again. I need to love myself. I need to learn to love myself. It's not that that's that saying that is a bad thing, but there's a way in which it feels. I think what she was saying, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but I think what she was saying was it starts to feel like we're missing the point. Like we're not actually, that gets said in a way that kind of perpetuates a certain way of looking at circumstances, and it doesn't create movement. And what flashed for me as we were talking about this, as she was talking about it, was, yeah, because there's a way in which when you're saying, I need to learn to love myself, that's the ego talking. The ego is saying, I, ego, need to learn a new pattern of loving myself, giving the love of God, the love of consciousness, the love of the that is always here in the moment and always coming through in the moment, to myself. So it's this weird kind of contortionism almost that our ego is doing to try to hang on, because the ego can't really love. That doesn't mean that people, human beings, humans with egos can't be loving people, but the love doesn't come from the ego. The love is coming through. The love is coming from source. The love is coming through the moment, through consciousness in this moment. So the ego can't learn to love itself. It's categorically impossible. What the ego can do is get out of the way and be loved. And this brings me back to something that David Hawkins says in his book. He says all spiritual attainment, when you start to really properly perceive spiritual growth, you see that spiritual realization is always the product of grace. It's never the result of striving or the spiritual work I've done. The work doesn't do the work. The work doesn't do that work. Obviously, David Hawkins and myself and anybody are going to advocate for doing the work, in the sense of making space, sitting down, meditating, creating a space where that work can be done by God. But there's no doing of that work that we can take over. And when we start to think, okay, now I know how to overcome my patterns, that's the ego basically playing God. It's the ego basically saying, okay, I've seen this happen a couple times. I've been watching the show, God. I think I can do what you're doing. And then basically just taking over power again and trying to run the psyche, having learned some hip new lingo, but having the same tools that it's always had, which are finite, which are animated by source, but not the source of source. And so as I was talking to my student today, that kind of came through in a really clear way. And it's kind of all tying together now as I'm talking to you, that, then Kyle had this big, powerful call this evening that was very much on that same topic, and there's just a sense, I think, in me of really feeling like I'm letting go and feeling some emotion around that, the course ending and where do I go next, and there's so many exciting doors opening that it feels odd that I'm emotional, but I am, and there's something there. There's something there that's like this space of unknowingness is there's something that's going to be revealed. I can tell it's not fully conscious yet, but it's really close. But yeah, that's where I am today. This is going to continue, I have a feeling, so you'll hear from me again. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. I love you all. Lovely day, lovely evening, lovely morning, whenever you happen to be watching this. I appreciate you. Thanks for being in my life. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. See you soon.